Mandalorian. Your ancestors rode the great Mythosaur. Surely you can ride this young foal.
The Mandalorian just did something that I don't think any of us expected Star Wars canon to actually do in a live-action project anytime soon. The second episode of The Mandalorian has dropped, and in it, Din Djarin and Bo-Katan venture into the Beskar mines of Mandalore to find the sacred waters, in order for Din Djarin to bathe in them and redeem himself in the eyes of the tribe. While he was completing the ritual, he was violently dragged underwater. After Bo-Katan rescued him, we caught sight of the culprit, the legendary beast known as a Mythosaur. Greetings, curious acolytes of the galaxy, and welcome back to our archives. For a little while now, The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett had been subtly foreshadowing and telegraphing the arrival of the Mythosaur beast into Star Wars canon. But for most of us, we didn't think it would actually happen. However, going back and watching, we can see several clues now that point us in the direction of the Mythosaur and its appearance. From Kuiil chiding Din Djarin about how his Mandalorian ancestors rode the mighty beasts, to the Armorer mentioning them fading into myth and legend. Even Boba Fett riding the Rancor could be taken as Lucasfilm winking to us about the Mandalorians riding these ancient beasts, and their close debut in the future. It all lines up now, but some questions still remain from some of us. What exactly is a Mythosaur? Where do they come from? And why do the Mandalorians hold the creature in such high regard? And how did it all fall into myth and legend, only to resurface thousands of years since its last sighting in this third season? Well, come with us today, students of the Force and Mandalorians, as we open up yet another holocron to discover the answer, and attempt to divulge all of these questions as we figure out what this now means moving forward for the Mandalorian Din Djarin and the Mandalorian Bo-Katan. Before we begin our tale though, according to our data tapes, many of the individuals that have passed through our archives have not yet joined our creed. So, if you are one of these individuals, make haste, for this is the way. Now, let us begin. In order to paint the full picture, we'll need to look into the pages of Legends continuity, where we actually have far more information regarding the ancient Mythosaur. Interestingly, canon seems to be loosely following along with what Legends has laid out, and it seems the information may still be proven relevant, and may even be of prophetic value for predicting how Mandalorian Season 3 could play out. The year is 7000 BBY. The galaxy is a very different place, and across the stars, the Jedi are having their second great schism. But far from them, in even deeper space, there are a people group known as the Tong, who are just now arriving on a mysterious lush planet that is teeming with life. The Tong are the ancient alien ancestors of what soon would become the Mandalorian people. During this era of great discovery, a leader of the Tong people would rise up and lead them to a bright future when he brought them to touch down on this brand new world. This Tong leader's name was Mandalore, and he would go down in history as Mandalore the First. Though that is his name in Legends continuity, in canon they call him Mandalore the Great, which is who Bo-Katan was talking about when she read off of the ancient tablet, deep within the mines. To keep with canon continuity and to avoid confusion, we'll continue calling him Mandalore the Great. Anyway, Mandalore the Great would lead his people on a crusade against the dominant species of this fresh new planet, which of course were the Mythosaurs. This beast's claim to fame was its legendary size, as the monster was notably the size of a small city. The closest land beast that we can compare this to is the Zillo Beast, and there is a good possibility that the Mythosaur far outclasses the Zillo Beast in terms of both mass and length, as well as power. While we unfortunately do not know too much about the Mythosaur's physiology, we do know that they were incredibly powerful monsters, and that the Tang would use them to test their skills as warriors. Mandalore the Great would be the first one who ever killed a Mythosaur in combat, and I would like to point out that this was before the Tang people had the weapons of modern societies, weapons like the Mandalorians would one day use. Instead though, he used axes, swords, and shields, with it likely taking Mandalore the Great days, if not weeks, to chop away at the massive beast. Following this, the rest of the Tang people would basically hunt them to near extinction, claiming the new planet for their very own. And following this, the people would take upon themselves a new name, a name known as the Mandoade. This translated to the Children of Mandalore in order to honor their brave leader. They also went as far as completely naming the new planet after him as well, Mandalore, and since this day, the skull of the Mythosaur became the insignia of the Mandalorian creed. But there is much more to the Mythosaur. The very first Mandalorian helmet was carved for Mandalore the Great out of the skull of a Mythosaur, which was almost as hard as Beskar armor was. This mask would actually be passed down from one Mandalore to another for thousands of years, doing so as the symbol of their supremacy, as this was an era long before the time of the arrival of the Darksaber. The very last person to wear this mask, though, would be Revan's good friend, Canderous Ordo, who would take the moniker of Mandalore the Preserver. After Mandalore the Preserver's death, however, the mask was lost to history, and the Mandalorians had no symbol for their leader, until of course, Tar Vizsla arrived on the scene with the Darksaber, the first ever Mandalorian to be inducted into the Jedi Order. The legacy of the Mythosaur, though, was intrinsically tied with the Mandalorian people's culture, and no matter what tribe or clan one belonged to, all of them bore the skull of the Mythosaur on their armor. The ancient Mandalorians for hundreds of years would test their true skill as warriors and in combat by hunting and killing the Mythosaur. But soon, it seems that this went for a very different route in Star Wars canon. Eventually, the Mandalorians took to taming and riding the ancient beasts, as we know from Quill's story to Din Djarin. This of course wasn't the first or only beast that the Mandalorians were known for riding, but it was by far the most famous and deadly. It seems though that the Mythosaurs went extinct from all the hunting of their species, and as we are told by the armorer, eventually fact faded to fiction as the tale of the Mythosaur was lost to legend and mythology. But that's not all the armorer said. She had also mentioned in passing that the re-emergence of the Mythosaur would usher in a new age for Mandalore. Yet another cryptic foreshadowing given to us, and this brings us to our next point. What does it mean now that the Mythosaur has returned? First though, how did it return? Our theory is that this Mythosaur is the last of its kind, and it hadn't been discovered heretofore because it has been in deep hibernation, resting far down into the heart of Mandalore, but was suddenly awakened during the Empire's bombing of the world. An attack which shook the surface so violently that the Mythosaur emerged from its great slumber. The implications of its arrival are absolutely huge for the show, as Season 3 of The Mandalorian seems to be focusing a lot on the ruler of Mandalore, and the leader that will one day bring their people back together. The arrival of the Darksaber into Din Djarin's possession, and then the discovery of the last Mythosaur is continuing to hammer home the theme of leadership. The very foundation of Mandalorian leadership was represented by the skull of this beast, which was forged into the first helmet. And it's clear that the Mandalorian culture is about to change forever. Some of the signs have already happened, with Grogu deciding to go and be with Din Djarin to become a Mandalorian rather than a Jedi. And even though Grogu has left the Jedi way, he is still growing powerful in the Force. Could it be possible that Grogu is the key to taming the Mythosaur, as he has shown great power over the minds of beasts in the past? But who eventually will lead Mandalore and tame the Mythosaur? Bo-Katan and Din Djarin are head to head. Both of them discovered the Mythosaur together. They both have somewhat of a desire to rule, but also both have hesitation towards it at the same time. In this moment, Din and Bo are working together, but clearly it's leading towards a barreling collision course, and it's unknown right now what that collision will be. Moving forward in the season, we will be sure to keep a sharp eye out for more Mythosaur content the more we learn about the beast. But my friends and fellow members of the Creed, what do you think of the Mythosaur's arrival? Are you excited to see what is coming up next for Din Djarin and Bo-Katan and their rivalry? And, in your opinion, who do you hope to see eventually take the rightful throne of Mandalore? And what do you think these ancient beasts of legends are capable of? As always, my friends, hit that subscribe button, for this is the way, and I hope to see you soon.